How to understand your credit card statement. That's what we're going to take a look at in today's video. I have two of my credit card statements. We're going to run through line item by line item so you understand everything. You'll also notice that the same information is in both credit card statements. It's just organized and formatted a little bit differently. So your credit card statements may look a little bit different, but again, the same information is there. We're going to take a look at the minimum payment, the due date, how much you need to pay to not be charged interest, where you charge any interest or fees during the statement period, how much interest you paid year to date, what's the fee if you are late on your payment, and a bunch of other things. Why don't we hop on the computer and take a look at my statements. So here's my Capital One credit card. So along the very top, what you're gonna see, there are 30 days in the billing cycle, and that was the specific date. So from August 15th to September 13th. So what you'll be charged for in this statement is anything that was processed and finalized on these due dates. So if I had charged something at 10 p.m. on August 14th, it might actually go through on the 15th and would show up here. If I charged something late on the 13th, the transaction would probably still be processing on the 13th and would show up on September 14th, which would be on my next credit card statement. Now, if we move on to the left side, the payment information. So the payment due date is October 8th. You'll see here, they're specific for online and phone payments. It needs to be by 8 p.m. Eastern. If you call or try to do it online after 8 p.m. Eastern, it's gonna show up the next day, which if you haven't made another payment during this cycle, basically you would be charged a late fee, which we're gonna get into in a second. The next thing is the new balance. So this is the total balance, the end of the day on September 13th. So generally for credit cards, you would need to pay this entire balance off in full to not be charged any interest. This card is a little bit different because I did a balance transfer at 0% for 12 months. And so I don't have to pay all of this to not be charged interest. So here's the minimum payment of $60. Then down below what I was talking about. So I need to pay $923.29. If I make that payment, I will not be charged any interest. So it's basically the minimum payment on the balance transfer debt plus all the new purchases that I made during these dates. Moving down forward, what I mentioned before, the late payment warning. So if I do not call them or set up an online payment before 8 p.m. on October 8th, I will be charged a late fee of $40. If for some reason you forgot to make a payment, if I were to make a payment on October 9th or 10th and I've never had a late fee, I'd recommend calling your bank, apologizing, saying it'll never happen again. You're gonna set up auto pay, and there's a good chance that they'll remove that late fee. If it happens several times, they're not gonna be able to do it though. The next thing is the minimum payment warning. So this is one of the things where, is a fairly new thing on credit card statements, but basically showing you that if you just make the minimum payment, it's gonna take a really, really, really long time to pay off your debts. So I would recommend ideally paying off the balance in full, if not paying something significantly more than the minimum payment, if at all possible. So what you'll see here is if I just made the minimum payment, which right now is $60, it would take me 20 years to pay this off. I would end up paying $13,319, which is more than double the balance I have right now. So you'll see how much more it makes a difference of making a larger payment. So if I paid $206 instead of $60, I would pay it off in 3 years, but would still end up paying $7,412, which is quite a bit more. It's a $1,300 and some dollars more than the balance. It shows you the estimated savings between these two. If you have problems with your debt and need help, there is a number for credit card or credit counseling. Okay, now moving on to the next column is the account summary for the month. So the previous balance, so basically what I started with at midnight on August 15th was this amount. During the period, I made a payment of $520.32. There was a refund of 19 cents and I had $919 in transaction. You can see there were no cash advances, no fees, and no interest. Cash advances, as you're gonna see later, charge significantly higher interest rates than purchases. So if you need cash for some reason, I would advise you to try to find a loan some other way versus taking a cash advance from your credit card. So it's basically the sum and subtraction of all these numbers that gets you to the new balance. Below that, they're going to show you credit card limit. In this case is $11,000. Available credit as of September 13th is $4,948.61, which is this number minus this number is this. The cash advance credit limit is $5,000. So generally for whatever your available credit is, the cash advance amount is something smaller than that. You can see here it's less than half. And then the available credit for cash advances is basically the lesser of this amount and this amount. So you can see I don't have 5,000 available credit, so it's the total available credit I could take out as a cash advance, but I'd be paying a ton of interest. The next thing is the reward summary. So with the Capital One Venture One card, I think it's 1.25 points for every dollar spent. It's not the card with the most points you could be earning, but there's no annual fee for this card. It's something I've had for a long time. So you can see right now I have 9,503 rewards points as far as the balance. And you can see the 994 that I earned this period. And then there were no points redeemed during this period. Moving on to the next section. So this is the part you would basically, this line is where you would cut. If you had printed this out or had it sent to you in the mail, you would cut this part out and mail in this piece that has, you know, your name, address, the account ending in, and has the last 4 digits, and you write in the amount enclosed. Hopefully you're making your credit card statements online and ideally on auto pay. So this is basically a section if you want to send your payment via snail mail. Moving on from this part, there's a bunch of fine print. I'm not going to go through all of this, but it's how to avoid interest, how are payments processed, how is the payment applied, how is interest determined. So if you have any fine print questions, this one I understand about membership fees when this card has no annual fee, but that's on there anyways. If you're dissatisfied with the purchase, here's what you need to do. There's a section here on all the different ways you can make payments. So CapitalOne.com, their mobile app, or to call customer service. And then here's where it talks about how your payment is applied. So you need to pay it by 8 p.m. Eastern to apply the payment that day. It needs to arrive in the mail by 5 p.m. or on the day that it's due. Then here you have a list of all the different transactions. So first you have the payments, then you have, here's all the things that I purchased during the month. We don't have to go through all those in detail, but you can go through and make sure, hey, does something in here not make any sense? After all the transactions for the period, you see the fees for the period. There were no fees in this period. Then moving on to the next page is the interest charge. So if you were charged interest because you hadn't paid off the statement in full, this is where you would see those on purchases, cash advances, or other balances. Then you have the total year-to-date fees and interest. So this would be the fee for the balance transfer, and then no other interest. Then here you have a section on how the interest charge is calculated. So what you're going to see here is what I was mentioning earlier. For purchases, it's 16.9%, and for cash advances, it's 24.9%, significantly higher. Here you see the promotional 0% and the amount for that. Okay, and then down below it explains how the interest rate is calculated. So you see a P beside both of these. So here is the same P. So it's the prime rate plus a margin. So if the prime rate goes up, that means that these interest rates are going to go up as well. At the very end of the statement, you have a couple account notifications. So get bonuses for referring friends. The next important tip is the interest saver payment. So if I pay this amount, there'll be no interest charged on this card. Here's encouraging me to enroll in AutoPay, which I believe should already be set up. Now let's move on to statement number 2, which is my brand new SoFi credit card. So again, logo at the top, you're going to see organized slightly differently, but the same information is there. So here you can see it starts out with the credit card limit. So this is a brand new card that I only had for a couple of weeks. Here is the credit available, which would be basically this amount minus the new balance, which is over here of $342.85. The closing date was September 14th. The days in billing cycle is only 20 days, which is a little strange to me. I think probably what happens is I was approved for the credit card. They sent it out in the mail. I activated it. And maybe from my approval date to This date is a full month, but hey, there's 20 days in the statement period. I imagine next month will be 30. You can see the $342.85 in purchases. And then again, you have balance transfers, cash advances, fees charged, interest charged, which are all zero, which leaves me to the new balance, which in this case is the same as the purchases for the month. And then along the side, you have the total new balance and the minimum payment. What you'll see here, I think a lot of card companies will have the minimum payment in some sense of, hey, if you only charge $10, the minimum payment might be the full amount. But in this case, you can see that it's over 10% of the balance. I imagine if I had $5,000 of debt on this card, it wouldn't be a $500 minimum payment. Then you're gonna see some familiar things. You have the late payment warning. So if I do not make the payment by October 9th, I'll be charged $39. Then below that, you have the minimum payment warning. So if I only made the minimum payment, this isn't quite as scary as the Capital One, where if I'm making the minimum payment, which I imagine the smallest it could be is $35, it'll take me almost a year to pay it off. I'll pay it off in 11 months. And we'll pay $371. So you'll see about $28 in interest over 11 months. Again, here you can see credit counseling services. There's an 800 number to call. One difference here is the rewards are not showing up on my statement like it did with Capital One. It says looking for your rewards details. You can earn in multiple ways, details in the app, probably on the website as well. Then what you're gonna have here, this probably looks familiar too. This is what I would cut out and mail to them. But again, you have everything set up on autopilot. And so again, write the amount that's enclosed, and here's where you need to send it to. Then what do you know? Here's the list of transactions. Oops, that went quick. There weren't a lot of transactions. And then again, you have a summary of fees and interest, which this is a new card and there shouldn't be fees or interest anyway. So this is at zero. Year to date also at zero. Then this again, the same interest charge calculation. So again, you'll see pretty much the same rate. So you have $16.99 for purchases and $26.99 for cash advances. And you see here that it's variable. So whatever rate this is tied to, if it goes up or down, these rates may change. And then you have, again, very similar details of credit reporting, how to avoid paying interest, how do we calculate it, interest charges, making payments, allocating payments, late charges, prepayment. If you're dissatisfied with one of your card purchases, all of that information you can find in the fine print right here. And then below that, you have pay your bill with AutoPay again. So again, it's reminding me to set up AutoPay. I set up AutoPay on all of my cards and I recommend that you do the same. The thing is, if you're a couple of days late or even a couple of hours late, you would be charged $39 or $40 for these two cards and something similar for any other credit card. If you completely forgot for an entire month to make a payment, that's when they start to send it to the credit bureaus and it can affect your credit score. And we definitely don't want that. I would recommend at least setting up AutoPay for the minimum payment. You would still be charged interest for the remaining balance, but at least there would be no late fees and no late payment sent to the credit bureaus. So if you want to learn more about credit cards, we have a whole bunch of videos. I'll link to the playlist right here. Hope to see you in those and future videos. Bye-bye.